Hi, my name is Sharat Chander, longtime member of the Java team, and I'm proud to be your host today. This is the third Java edition of Oracle Developer Live. And whether you're joining for the first time or coming back, we're very excited for you making time with us today. Today, we're going to explore all the amazing parts of how Java can enrich your life. Enrich your life as a developer in terms of enabling new ideas, in terms of empowering your career. We're also going to explore how Java can address modern things like modern application development. In our keynote, you'll hear from George Saab, Aurelio García-Ribeyro, Manish Gupta, and Chander Arimura, who will take us through that journey. We'll also learn about other technologies that are enabling Java for modern application development, such as Verrazana and GraalVM. We have a rich collection of speakers that are going to be presenting on a myriad of topics today, both in breadth and in depth. But I would like to also highlight two of our external speakers that have made time to join us today. The first is Venkat Subramaniam, who comes from Denver, who is a Java champion and is also very active in the Java community through the Denver Java User Group. We also have Mala Gupta, developer advocate at JetBrains, who is also a fellow Java champion and is advocating for Java through the New Delhi Java User Group, my parents' home city, so hello to everyone back in New Delhi. But it's great to see the community also participating with us in today's event. It's also important to understand how you are using Java. We love to hear your stories, how it's empowered your career, how it's enabled your career, how it's brought you the ability to come up with something innovative. We want to hear from you. And if you're a customer of Java, we want to understand how Java is powering your business, how it's making it successful in so many unique ways. We'd love to hear your stories so we can share your stories with the entire Java community. And yes, we do read all of your comments. It's also important to invest in yourself. After today, taking your learning, you can go to Oracle University and continue forward with the free training we have with our Oracle Explorer Badge program. It's free training that allows you to prepare for the eventual certification program, all offered for free through very small micro sessions to allow you to understand all of the places of Java that can advance your career. And there's even another rich place to find content, Java Magazine, articles authored by developers for developers. A lot of the topics you'll hear today will be eventually seen in Java Magazine. And lastly, I encourage you to stay connected. Stay connected by following @OpenJDK and @Java on Twitter. We'll provide more updates in terms of the evolution of Java through both of these handles. But also stay connected with the speakers you're going to hear from today. Most of them are on social. You can follow them on Twitter and keep the conversation going. It's time we start today's keynote. I'd like to introduce George Saab, Vice President, Java Platform Group, Chair, OpenJDK Governing Board. George, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Sharat. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. And we're going to celebrate over 25 years of innovation on the Java platform. There are a lot of reasons why Java has been popular for so long. It's easy to use because of its simple syntax, strong typing, and broad standard library. It's very reliable. It has a robust and secure JVM, which is very, very heavily tested, including all of the libraries. There's tremendous openness because we have a very transparent development process, which we'll talk about a little bit today. And finally, a long history of dedication to platform independence, helping you be agnostic towards operating system and hardware choices. We see that even today, Java is celebrated in the industry because of its constant evolution based on formal specifications. Even as more choices exist, Java remains the #1 programming language, extending its reach to many different kinds of enterprises and helping developers tackle transitions in technology as it has with cloud and machine learning. With that success in the enterprise, demand continues for developers to advance their Java skills. There's a rich collection of publishers covering new use cases and best practices. And we see how Java continues to future-proof developer careers with opportunities to stand out through certification programs. The technology landscape is changing now at an increasing pace, Programming models and software architectures evolve to leverage new hardware developments, and improvements in performance let us tackle new problems. When we're thinking about the evolution of Java, we balance this to bring innovation while offering sustainability and compatibility. So as we move Java forward, there are a number of promises that are important. We have to balance and include trust, innovation, and predictability. We steward the evolution of Java in the OpenJDK community. You can see the development as it happens and gain a better understanding of the thought that has gone into the design of new Java features and the trade-offs that have been considered. We also have projects helping libraries in the ecosystem to add support for new Java versions and features. This can help you gain insight into the direction for Java and to prepare for future opportunities. You can rest assured that despite the increased pace of delivery of new Java features, the same care is taken to ensure that new versions remain stable, secure, and performant. Trust is built on Oracle's continued leadership in driving Java forward while also embracing the contributions from around the industry. And we'd like to thank those individuals and businesses who participate in helping Java's continual improvement. For long-term innovation, we invest in projects which cover areas where the software world is going. At the moment, we have the richest pipeline of new features in the history of Java. At the heart of this innovation pipeline are the innovation projects that are in OpenJDK. These projects take a long-term view of where we've been, where the world is going, and aim to solve the bigger challenges facing developers while maintaining a Java feel, ensuring that the billions of lines of Java code out there can continue to move forward along with the language. With the opportunities provided by more frequent releases, we have found ways of delivering which allow for feedback before a feature is set in stone. We've introduced ways of getting features into the hands of developers through a system of early access releases and through the concepts of experimental, incubator, and preview features. Let's take a look at this in action. Here you can see the preview feature system with multiple features having released now as a part of this process. Remember, a feature is complete in the preview stage, but there is the chance that it may change based on real-world feedback. We're excited to say that both records, pattern matching, for instance of, have become standard features of the Java language, and the JPackage tool is coming out of the incubator phase. Since 2017, we've kept the promise of offering a new release every 6 months. Each release offers incremental innovation and improvements, while we continue to develop transparently in the open, and at the same time offering developers the opportunity to participate more directly to shape the future of Java. Let's explore this in more depth. The 6-month releases are different from the previous major releases. We haven't magically found a way to do 3 years of development in 6 months. Instead, each release includes a smaller increment of change, but puts features in developers' hands more quickly. In addition to the 6-month releases, Oracle offers long-term support releases, which accumulate the improvements across those intervening 6-month feature releases. The number of features in an LTS release is similar to what you previously saw in a major release. For enterprises considering ongoing ease of maintenance, LTS releases are an excellent choice. But now, developers also have the option of accessing new features in a final form earlier. Since the introduction of the new cadence, Oracle has offered LTS releases every 3 years, with 5 6-month releases in between. While it took some time for the ecosystem to adjust, I'm pleased to say that support for new releases has been steadily increasing. As developers have enjoyed the faster availability of new features, the demand for LTS releases has grown. As a result, Oracle is pleased to announce that we will offer the next LTS after 17 in just 2 years instead of 3. This means that the next LTS release will be Java 21 in 2023 rather than Java 23 in 2024. This also means fewer 6-month releases in between, making it even easier to start new development on a 6-month release, knowing that an LTS release is just around the corner. Another important change is to licensing terms. One consistent request we've heard is that Java developers want longer availability to Oracle JDK for production use. I'm pleased to announce that with the Java 17 LTS, we will offer the Oracle JDK binaries free for production use. This will extend to 1 year past the release of the next LTS from Oracle. After that date, updates to JDK 17 will only be available for production use to Java SE subscription customers. Usage for development and testing will remain available at no cost for all updates. And with that, I'm pleased to turn things over to Aurelio García-Ribeyro, who runs Java Product Management, and he will take us through some of the key features since Java 11, up to and including the features in Java 17. Aurelio?
Thank you, George. Back in 2019, after the launch of JDK 11, which was, as you know, the previous long-term support release just before the release of 17, Brian Getz, the Java language architect, summarized the changes that happened in JDK releases leading to 11. Since there are many users who are still on 11 and will therefore receive the cumulative benefit of all of those releases when they move up to 17, I'd like to borrow a page from Brian's book and do a recap of the most interesting features that have been delivered with JDK 12 to 17. As it has now become the standard, future releases come out like clockwork every 6 months and are relative to these older massive releases small. With JDK 12, we have the first preview feature, and we see it back for a second pass in JDK 13. Here's my choice of the most important changes from 2019. Now, Java 14 in March of 2020 was a bit larger. It was in this release that a feature that had been previewed in earlier versions officially was added to the platform. There was also a bit of work done on memory management. This release also starts adding a few removals and deprecations to my running list. Java 15 added a few more deprecations and removal, and improved some of the work done on garbage collection. JDK 16 added the first APIs from Project Panama, the project that aims to make interaction between Java and non-Java libraries easier. It also brought in changes to the OpenJDK infrastructure. And finally, JDK 17 added a good set of features to my running list. Since JDK 17 is the latest one, those features are new to everyone, and I will use bold to write those entries in the list. That's it for my choices. We now have a quite long list, but it seems a bit arbitrary because they're just shown in the order on which they arrive. Let's group them to see if we can distinguish some patterns here. Once we group them like this, we can see the results of the projects that George was just mentioning. When we had a shorter list based on what was available on any 6-month period, the JEPs seem arbitrary. Now we can see that, as before, we have a nice collection that covers the Java language, the libraries, and improvements in the JVM. We also have improvements in serviceability and other changes. Finally, we get to see what has been referred to as the harder part of the stewardship, choosing things to deprecate and remove to ensure that we can continue moving the platform forward. The language features are mostly the result of the work done in Project Amber. They represent the most visible changes to the platform, which most developers will become familiar with. The benefits of language improvements go to developers who write new applications or who refactor older code. They make it easier to write good code, or in some cases, harder to write bad code. They are the most common reasons that developers give for wanting to move up to a new release. But in order to receive the benefit of a new language feature, a developer must code. Old applications don't get any benefit out of new language features. I will review this list in detail soon, but let's first do a quick review of the rest of the categories. The library enhancements are sometimes similar to language features. New APIs will be useful only for new code or code that refactors them. There are a couple of such new APIs in incubator modules that we get from Project Panama. These APIs will make it easier to create libraries that take better advantage of vector operations. Many libraries used for machine learning, artificial intelligence, and cryptography could receive a significant performance boost from these APIs. It will also make it easier to leverage non-Java libraries. Now, the impact of new APIs is sometimes greatly amplified by library developers. Many developers will never use these APIs directly, but will benefit from improvements in frameworks and third-party libraries that will use them. Now, work done in JDK libraries can have an impact to existing applications that use them. We have refactored some of the code used in the pseudo number generators that will make it easier to find the right random number generator and will make it simpler for the maintainers of the libraries. There's also some improvements in deserialization filters that will allow us to limit which classes can be deserialized in a way that doesn't involve every developer having to code for a filter or trying to establish one single filter for the whole JVM at startup. Those adopting JDK 17 will also get some performance improvements by the JVM. That's the engine that powers all Java applications, so they all get better. The list here includes a new garbage collector algorithm called setGC that aims at having sub-millisecond pause times, regardless of how large the heap that they work on gets. It should be able to handle heaps of up to 16 terabytes. Now, there are improvements also for G1, the default garbage collector. With these changes, the Java runtime will free memory faster and will take advantage of NUMA-aware memory. Unlike the language changes, improvements to the JVM will bring enormous value even to existing applications that are not recompiled with JDK 17. Improvements in the JVM can also make the life of developers easier by providing more information to help debug existing applications. In JDK 11, we introduced JDK Flight Recorder, which allows tools to figure out what is going on in the Java runtime when an application is running. It is designed to provide very detailed information with minimal overhead so that it can be left always on and monitor systems in production without paying a high performance penalty. Before this change, you had to wait for a flight recorder to be done, and then you could only analyze the data after the fact. With the new streaming events for Flight Recorder, you can monitor a JVM in real time and get the same information that was previously only available asynchronously. There is also an improvement on the level of information that is provided when a null pointer exception is thrown. Before this change, a null pointer exception would only provide the method, file name, and line number of the code that triggered the exception. This was all well and good for simple cases, but if there were multiple possible variables in that one line of code, it was hard to determine precisely which one had triggered the exception. The new error messages will now say precisely the full access path that triggered the exception. JDK 17 also delivers a new port. As many know, Apple has embraced ARM64 processors for their new computers. This new port of the JDK aims to continue delivering the high-performance runtime that we're used to on those new systems. It will complement nicely the ARM64 port that we added for Linux a few releases back. Now, not all of the work in the JEPs is for delivering new features. We also spend time on making it easier to work on OpenJDK. For more than a decade, we use Mercurial as the source control system for the code in OpenJDK. Switching to Git might sound like it would be an easy thing. And it could be if you rush it, But we took the time to do it right. The tools that worked on Mercurial were updated to work in a similar manner in Git. And there was a lot of thought on how to bring in the history in a way that preserved the information, but it still made it feel as if we had been using Git all along. The last two categories are the ones that most people would prefer didn't exist. If language features are the candy, these two are the vegetables. We need to take steps to make it so that code written today will continue working in the future. One example of that is that we need to discourage the use of internal APIs. With Jigsaw in JDK 9, we gained the ability to restrict access to those APIs that are not guaranteed to remain in the platform or that might change with little or no warning. These internal APIs were widely used at the time, so turning access off by default would have kept many common frameworks and libraries from moving past JDK 8. Instead, we kept the access open, but added additional warnings so that people had time to migrate away from internal APIs. Several years later, with JDK 16, we made it so that by default, you no longer had access to internal APIs, but you could flip that back with a single command line option. Now in JDK 17, we removed the single command line option. You can still tell the runtime to allow access to internal APIs, but now you will have to specify each package that you want to access to individually. We don't plan to make any further changes to the way you gain access to those internal APIs, but still nobody should be using them, because now that most people are not using them, we are more likely to be willing to change those internal APIs with shorter notices. So please, again, don't use internal APIs. And finally, although we are almost fanatical about maintaining backward compatibility, there are features that have to be removed if we want to keep moving forward. These features are not just ones that we don't like or ones that we think have good replacements. The logic to decide what should be removed takes all of that into account, but it also factors what the cost of just keeping it can be. If we just leave it alone, having them in the platform imposes a tax on all new features. You have to make sure that any new functionality interacts correctly with all the existing ones. The items on this list do not provide the value that we thought they would, either because they didn't see much adoption or because other improvements have made them obsolete. Now, we don't want to surprise anybody by removing things with little warning. So we first deprecate the functionality and only remove it in a later release. How many releases a feature is deprecated before is being removed depends on many factors, like how easy it is to replace it and how much is still being used. Okay, I promised we should take a look now at those language features. JDK 16 added records, which saved developers the need to deal with some of the boilerplate one had to create when writing a class that simply aggregates immutable data. Take, for example, a simple class to express a coordinate. We just want to pass around an immutable pair of integers, x and y. But we're going to need a constructor to set the values, and we want all the classes to implement an equals. Let's not forget also we want a hash code. It would also be useful to see those values if we use toString, and we want to be able to access those values, so we need methods to read them. Now, all of this extra code could easily be auto-generated by your IDE, so writing it is not such a big deal. But that doesn't help us when trying to read the code and understand what is this class for. We will have to review all of this auto-generated code before we can be sure that this is boilerplate and there's nothing but ceremony behind those methods. What if we could tell Java to handle all of this for us? Instead of saying class, we say record. The compiler then can make sure that our record gets all of those required methods without us having to include them in our code. If, for some reason, some of those methods weren't just boilerplate, let's say you needed a constructor to do some validation on the incoming data, well, you just need to implement the constructor, and the compiler will provide the other ones. This way, whatever is written is indeed required, and when reading the code, you only see things that are necessary, no boilerplate. Records are not just about eliminating boilerplate, though. They represent a much deeper improvement to the platform. For example, when deserializing records, the runtime won't simply force values into the fields. When a record is deserialized, the system actually calls the record constructor. In that way, if there are any checks being done, they don't get bypassed, making deserialization of records relatively safer. Records also set the stage for further improvements. In a later version, we will aim to add pattern matching on records. Switch expressions extend switch so that it can be used as either a statement or an expression, that is, returning a value. Both forms can use the traditional case values column with fall through, or the new case value, that's the arrow, which has no fall through. We also added a new way of leaving switch. Yield works similarly to break, but it returns a value. This is what a traditional statement switch looked like. In this example, the switch statement really wanted to be an expression. It wants to return a value. Using a switch expression, we can return a value so that you don't need, for example, that extra variable. Also, another improvement is that we can now have multiple constants separated by commas for each branch. Finally, the cases in a switch must be exhaustive. You have to provide a path for all possible values, which normally means that you have to provide a default. However, when you're operating on an enum, the compiler can check and make sure that you have covered all the valid use cases, which means that you don't need a default if you cover all of the cases. This works really nice as well with sealed classes, making the switch expression much easier to write and to understand than the equivalent switch statement. JDK 17 adds sealed classes. They're available in preview in JDK 16. Sealed classes and interfaces restrict which other classes or interfaces may extend or implement them. In Java, you sometimes use a class hierarchy to reuse code via inheritance, right? But sometimes it can be used also to model the various possibilities that exist in a domain, like the kind of shape supported by a graphics library. When we want to use class hierarchy in this way, restricting the set of subclasses can streamline the modeling. What we need is a superclass to be widely accessible, but not widely extensible. Let's look at a simple example. A class is sealed by applying the sealed modifier to its declaration. Then, the permits clause specifies the classes that are permitted to extend the sealed class. A sealed class and its permitted subclasses must belong to the same module. If they're declaring an unnamed module, they have to be in the same package. Every permitted subclass must directly extend the sealed class, and every permitted subclass must choose a modifier to describe how it continues the sealing initiated by the superclass. It could be final and allow no more subclassing. It could in turn be sealed, which means it will have its own set of permitted subclasses. Or it could be non-sealed. Java lang class will get two new methods so that code using reflection will be able to determine if a class or interface is sealed, and if so, to get a list of the permitted subclasses. With JDK 15, we add text blocks, which were previewed in JDK 13 and 14. Text blocks are multi-line string literals that can be represented in code without having to deal with most escape sequence and clunky concatenations. Let's take a look at another example. Imagine you want to assign some HTML into a string in your program. Before text blocks, to represent a multi-line block of text, we had to process strings using new landscapes and concatenating multiple strings. Manually processing the strings is error-prone, and the resulting code is hard to read. This could be even worse if the string happened to contain a few double quotes. We would need to escape them. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just cut and paste text unmodified right into our Java editor? Here we see the result of replacing the traditional string literal with the text block. It looks a lot like a traditional string literal. It uses the same set of escape sequences. It just uses a different delimiter, 3 double quotes, and it can span multiple lines. Note that moving to multi-line format leaves us with a dilemma. We normally want to indent the text blocks along with our code, but we probably don't want the incidental indentation to show up in the string. We use heuristics to determine which indentation is part of the string and which is accidental, and we trim off the accidental indentation. In this example, the gray dots represent the left indentation, which was deemed accidental. The algorithm will also trim spaces to the right of the last non-white character in each line. The resulting string looks like what you would have gotten from the original code, with each line ending after the closing bracket. JDK 16 also delivers pattern matching for instance of, which allows us to express the conditional extraction of components from objects in a more concise and safer manner. Let's see an example. We've all seen or written code like this. We have an object which could hold different types, and we want to do something with it if it happens to be of a particular type. Three things are going on here. One, we have to test to see if the object is a string. Two, we have to declare a new string so that we can cast the object. And three, we have to cast the object into the new variable so that we can treat it like a string. Using pattern matching, we can reduce the code into a single line that does all of those three things. The variable s is only created if the object is a string. If so, the object is automatically casted into the variable, and the variable is in scope only inside the brackets of the if statement. If there's an else part of the conditional, the new variable is not in scope in the else part. JDK 17 adds, as a preview feature, pattern matching for switch expressions and statements. Being a preview means that this change is not yet permanent, and using it will require a command line argument at compile time and at runtime. Pattern matching for switch allows expressions to be tested against patterns. Current switch statements work on a few types: numeric, enums, and strings. If we wanted to use patterns to check for a certain number of possibilities, we would need to use a chain of if-else statements. Using pattern matching in a switch expression, we can make this clearer. Remember that the case statement has to be exhaustive. So in most cases, you want to add a default value, which is now allowed with a case for null. This makes the code much easier to read and maintain. If you want to learn more about any of these features, take a look at openjdk.java.net. We will also have later sessions where many of the ones I showed will be covered in much more detail. In one of my sessions, I will focus exclusively on the features added in JDK 17. I will also have a session where I introduce Java Management Service. Java Management Service is a new OCI native service that aims to address the complexity of managing, securing, and tuning Java at scale. JMS will help users answer questions like, what are all the Java versions that I have installed? Which versions are being used by which application? And are all my versions up to date and secure? Java Management Service is offered at no additional cost to our subscription customers, as well as when managing workloads running in OCI. If you want to learn more about JMS and see a very short demo, join me in my session later today. And now, to share with you the value that Java SE subscription can bring to everybody, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Manish Gupta, Vice President Marketing, Java Platform Group.
Thank you, Aurelio. Good to be here. Given Java's prevalence and Oracle's role as a steward and innovation leader for Java, it was truly important that we delivered an offering that served the largest population of developers and organizations globally. Building on Java's pillars of trust, innovation, and predictability, we launched the Oracle Java SE subscription that has a number of unique attributes. It's simple and covers deployments regardless of whether in the cloud, on-premises, or in hybrid modes. It's transparent. The pricing structure and the discount structures are published on the website. It allows for customers in a pay-as-you-go model to grow as their business needs evolve. It includes continuous innovation, adding new capabilities to increase the value that the customers experience over time. It's not just one and done. Recent introduction and inclusion of the entitlement to GraalVM Enterprise and the Java Management Service are two examples of such continuous innovation that are being added to the Java SE subscription. And it's very important for us to bring the value of the Oracle Cloud infrastructure to the ecosystem. And hence, the attributes that come with the Oracle Java SE subscription are free for the workloads that are running on Oracle Cloud infrastructure. No incremental cost to the customers. A lot of powerful elements are packaged into the subscription offering. The core components include, first and foremost, of course, the Oracle JDK binaries and the associated commercial license. As you all know, Oracle contributes over 80% of the enhancements, fixes, bug fixes, etc., in every OpenJDK release. And its developers have more experience writing and supporting JDK than any other vendor. It offers the world's best Java support, 24/7, all year round, in 27 local languages, supported by a team with members that each have more than 15 years of experience and work very closely with the Java development team. It includes security, performance, and stability updates that come directly from Oracle, the innovation leader. This includes quarterly critical patch updates, as well as interim updates for supported versions that have reached end of public update. It also includes access to mission-critical bug fixes before they get included in publicly available releases. Additional features include tools like the Java Management Service that you heard from Aurelio, the Advanced Management Console, which serves the management capabilities on the desktop, and now with the introduction of Java Management Service, here's a server-side solution as well. It makes it easy for management of your Java estate, regardless of where it's deployed and how big the deployment is. Java Management Service is a native service on Oracle Cloud infrastructure that intends to provide visibility, insights, and tuning for the Java deployments across clouds and on-prem. And GraalVM Enterprise, which is a high-performance compiler that can boost performance of existing code when running in just-in-time mode, or offer instantaneous startup times when running in ahead-of-time compilation mode. This all while reducing memory and compute requirements, hence saving tremendous cost to the operators. Its polyglot capability makes GraalVM Enterprise the ability to compile programs written in Java and other languages, making it attractive for modern app development. The entitlement to GraalVM Enterprise is included with the subscription at no additional cost to the customers. And finally, the Java Success Program. It's a unique program including a number of perks such as from Oracle University, free Java licensing and certification to the customers of Java SE subscription. So what is the experience that the customers are seeing? What is the value that's derived by the customers of the Java SE subscription? The list is very long. I'll cover a few pieces here. The customers are able to maintain the right security posture and manage compliance requirements in a much better manner than they could otherwise. They have the tools and access to the best technical resources for management of their entire Java estate. They have the flexibility to move at the pace of their business. With the subscription, they can update portion or all of their Java estate when the business requires such, and achieve the security and compliance objectives. According to an analysis done by a third-party analyst that was conducted last year, the flexibility from the Java SE subscription gives them about a 30% savings over a 4-year period when compared to achieving security and compliance objectives with the regular 6-month updates. And with GraalVM Enterprise, the performance boost and resource savings can result in substantial efficiency improvement for any organization. Recently, to better understand the drivers for commercial support of Java, we conducted a study with IDC. The results, as you can see, show that there are diverse reasons and interests for why an organization selects a commercial support structure. These range from performance optimizations to access to technical resources, to access to local language support, and the list is quite long, as you can see. What's important is that there are many reasons, and a reason might be appropriate for an organization that might be small in size or a very large organization, doesn't matter. They all can benefit from the Java SE subscription. And the Oracle subscription aligns very well with the research data that you see here. And as a result of that alignment and meeting the needs of the marketplace, what we have seen over the last 3 years is that subscription from Oracle has won the trust of thousands of customers, ranging from very large Fortune 10 enterprises to the smaller development houses in private and public sectors and across all of the industries globally. Over 50% of Fortune 100 organizations are included in the customer base. Since the introduction of the subscription 3 years ago, we have seen a very high renewal rate and consistently high customer satisfaction scores amongst our customers. It's gratifying to see the success of the program. I would like to take a moment and thank our customers that have given us the opportunity to serve them over the years. Thank you for your time today. With that, I would like to introduce Chad Arimura, VP of Developer Advocacy for Java, who will talk about Oracle's commitment to the Java ecosystem. Chad, take it away.
Thanks, Manish. Java's success is not just a story of great technology, but about a global and diverse community eager to help one another succeed. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to continue with our theme of trust, innovation, and predictability, sharing some global numbers as well as some local success stories. I'll end with a couple of announcements. The story of Java is truly a great one, and nothing tells this story better than the numbers behind Java's global community. 12 million plus developers globally, 1.8 million Stack Overflow questions answered, almost 1 million certified developers building software that powers our world. Let's take one of these numbers and visualize it. This is what community looks like. We're looking at 200 Java user groups overlaid on top of a map of the globe. Independently organized with a deep understanding of their respective local markets, these user groups host some of the most experienced speakers in the world, as well as those who have never been in front of an audience before. They host student days, hands-on workshops, bowling nights, pizza bashes. They organize conferences and many other creative expressions to evangelize the Java platform. Let's zoom in on just a couple of these stories. First, the Kansas City Jug, small but mighty. We'd like to thank it and recognize it for its ongoing commitments to meetups, as well as organizing the Kansas City Developers Conference, or KCDC, which I think is happening tomorrow. Now, let's zip over to France. The Paris Jug has been a tremendous influence in the French Java community, supporting unconferences like JAlba and JChateau, as well as helping many other Java user groups activate and flourish throughout the country. JavaBin in Norway has helped multiple chapters stay active around the Nordics. And they also organized the Java Zone conference, which has been a conference not just recognized on the regional stage, but the international stage. And if you haven't seen the teasers to Java Zone, like Stranger Strings or Game of Codes, I recommend that you check them out. To these 3 Jugs and all Jug leaders around the world, a special thank you for your leadership and commitment to the Java community. The Java group at Oracle is proud to continue to support you into the future. Another important group in the Java community is the Java Champions. The JCs are an esteemed group of self-selected individuals who have built successful careers around Java. And they've gone above and beyond by evangelizing Java around the world. As we did 6 months ago, I'd like to again congratulate the newest members of the group. Thank you for your dedication to the community, and welcome to the Java Champions. Now, I want to introduce to you some of the new programs and the series that we've introduced that really help you move your career forward in Java. Before I do that, though, I want to recognize and thank the Java Developer Relations team at Oracle: Sharat Chander, David Delabasi, Dennis McCogon, Nikolai Parlog, Billy Carando, and Jose Pomard. Now, they're creating some amazing content, and they've really done a great job of creating shows like the Inside Java Newscast, which is time-relevant stories about new features, progress of projects like Loom, Panama Valhalla, some of the latest industry gossip. Check that out on YouTube. Sip of Java is a series of 1-minute video shorts covering tips and tricks to make you a better Java developer. The Inside Java podcast is an audio series of interviews with the makers of Java, including Alan Bateman, Ron Pressler, Julia Bose, Chris Hegarty, Gavin Bierman, and many more. And Jep Cafe is a monthly serving of Java, diving deep into one particular JDK enhancement proposal. And I think it's filmed inside of a Parisian cafe. And finally, Inside.java is an aggregator of content developed by the Java Platform Group at Oracle as well as a place to find all of the shows I listed above. Finally, predictability is knowing that Oracle is continuing to invest in Java and the community, keeping its promises and stewarding forward the platform that has moved the world for the past quarter century. Without any further ado, for our first announcement. Get ready, because Java Day is coming back. Over the years, Java Day has been a special regional event celebrating Java with excellent talks, oftentimes in the local language of the region. This event has been our way to stay connected with you at the local level, and we'll bring it back in the near future. It's your opportunity to hear from Oracle Java experts as well as regional Java luminaries. Stay tuned for more details by following inside.java. And finally, I'm thrilled to announce the launch of dev.java, a new Java website for developers of all experience levels. With the same clean, easily navigable experience of inside.java, dev.java will be the home for a ton of resources to level up your skills, find information on the community programs that we talked about today, locate resources for those who wish to get involved with the building and testing of the JDK, also a way to help promote Java, and a host of other information that we think will keep you coming back week after week. Think of this as your new destination portal for Java, and the door is opening today. I'd like to end by once again thanking all of you for watching and being a part of one of the largest developer communities in the world. Thank you. Sharat, over to you.
I'd like to thank our keynote speakers today. They've given us a great foundation of the content you're going to experience in today's conference. But a little bit of housekeeping to start our day. The first is ask questions. You'll all have the opportunity to ask questions to the session speakers. It's your chance to understand the content by introducing the things that you want to learn. It's also important to take some screenshots. A lot of folks are watching today, but you probably have a lot of colleagues that are missing today's event. Share some of the experiences you're watching on social by using our conference hashtag, OracleDevLive. And lastly, we have a lot of content for you today. So don't worry, everything is being recorded, and shortly after the conference, we're going to give you the link for all the on-demand replays, not just for the keynote, but the sessions themselves. We're also bringing back something interesting from our last edition of Oracle Developer Live, and that is the participation badge. During the course of every session, you'll see a light bulb on some of the slides. That's an indicator to remember some of the content on that slide. You'll then be prompted with quiz questions during the course of the event. Answer those questions, earn this badge, and you'll be able to share that on social. Now, when you go to the agenda, remember this. We have 2 tracks for you for the remainder of the event. Pick the session of your choice by clicking on the Join Now button. But you do have the opportunity to move between sessions. So always go back and click on the session that is currently in play for you to join that session. Now, up next, we have 2 sessions. The first one is JDK 17, our next LTS release by Aurelio García-Ribeyro, and a session on Java and microservices by David Kobelis and Dmitry Alexandrov. I hope you all enjoyed today's event, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
I am Aditya Gupta.
Amy Lucido.
Jim Lasky.
Bernard Traversat.
My name is Paul Anderson.
And my name is Gail Anderson.
I'm Dusha from Serbia.
Ron Pressler.
Paul Sandoz.
I'm Mala.
Keisha William.
My name is Simon Ritter.
I'm James Gosling.
My name is Eric Brown, and I'm the director of the Alice Project at Carnegie Mellon University.
I've been a software engineer for the last 25 years.
I'm the executive vice president at IES Mock.
My name is Matthew Gilliard, and I work at Twilio.
I am a software engineer at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute.
I've been at Sun Microsystems and Oracle for over 29 years.
I work at Apple.
I'm Mark Reinhold, Chief Architect of the Java Platform Group at Oracle.
I work at the Norwegian Welfare and Labor Administration.
I work for a company called Canva.
I guess I'm the guy that started this whole madness.
Java sucked me in. It really moved my career from, okay, well, it looks like I have to do software development, to wow, this is really fun.
For me, Java is, the tool to be able to build and create whatever ideas I have in here.
When I finished writing my linked list, I stood back, looked at the screen, and I said, oh God, can it be that simple?
My Minecraft stopped working, so I went up to my dad and I told him, Dad, my jar file is corrupted. He was like, how do you know what a jar file is?
Java is the cornerstone of all my career.
Java is the passport to the world. I've traveled so many different countries because I'm fluent with Java.
Java has literally moved me. I've traveled to lots of different countries to attend and to speak at Java conferences. And I've met a lot of amazing people along the way.
Java moved me by allowing me to join the most dedicated group of professionals that I have ever had the pleasure of working with.
Java has really moved me literally. It changed the trajectory of my career.
Java, to me, changed my career in a way that gave me real immediate joy.
I cannot overstate how important being part of the Java community has been to me personally and professionally.
The enthusiasm and camaraderie of the whole community. I mean, it's really, really lovely.
What impresses me most is this large community of developers who are always there for you when you are stuck.
I know I'm drawing a legacy of many other programmers who built the very coding framework I'm using.
If someone says Java to me, I say, now there's a programming language with class.
I say community and possibilities.
I will say Java is the mother of programming languages.
If somebody says Java, I say how planet Earth gets programmed.
I say scale and longevity.
Relentless.
When someone says Java, I simply say jing, jing, jing. Java, jing, jing, jing.
I say community.
I say Java first, Java forever.
Relevant. That's the word I'm looking for. Relevant. So decade after decade, Java found a way to be relevant and stay relevant by adapting to the changing needs.
What are some of the new features I'm really excited about? I'm really excited about the Project Panama.
I'm excited about the new 6-month release cadence of Java.
I'm excited about JShell.
Project Loom. I'm really looking forward to Project Panama.
Obviously excited about Loom, but I'm also very excited about Valhalla.
I'm really excited about Java's new features for text blocks and records.
Records.
Where will Java be in the next 25 years? Who knows? It's so pervasive in all of our day-to-day lives.
If we keep the current pace of development, then Java will be a very relevant language also in 25 years.
I think it's a very reasonable hope for me that my grandchildren will continue to bring their creativity to Java when their time has come to work on it.
I can tell you one thing for sure. It's going to continue to deliver value to the users of Java.
Java, 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 jing, jing, jing.